All right, so the fourth restraint, or the fourth yama, is called brahmacharya. So brahmacharya isn't an exclusive yama for monks and priests and yogis living in the Himalayas who renounce all sexuality. For those people, celibacy is appropriate for them. But for most of us regular people, brahmacharya is a process of channeling your sexual energy in one direction for the right use. That would be a way that we can all practice brahmacharya. So the fourth restraint is about how we use the power of our sexuality. So sexuality is one of the most potent and primal urges that we have. It's probably why it's all over magazines, it's in the news constantly, it's just all over the place. And all of these things are evidence not of a failure of brahmacharya, but more of the temptation of it. So are we distracted constantly by this sexuality that we are kind of hardwired to have? So the surface level definition of brahmacharya is celibacy or continence. So if you looked it up, you may find those, or you may find other definitions like moderation. But if you dug pretty deep, you may find a really profound and beautiful definition, which is walking in Brahman consciousness. So there is an unbelievable amount and a wealth of information about brahmacharya and what it is and what it isn't. But there's also a good amount of information, or I guess misinformation, because celibacy just isn't the choice that most of us make. And we want to live this yogic lifestyle, and we see these set of principles, and a lot of times this New Age interpretation of it is really a modification of what the definition was, and we modified it so that we hear what we want to hear. I've dug pretty deep into this and have found some real beauty about what brahmacharya is and what it's all about. So you see, Brahman is a reference to the creator and the owner of all things, the proprietor of all things. And when you're conscious of this, as you're in reality, you are walking in Brahman consciousness. So you're conscious of Brahma in all things. Or in other words, you see all things coming from a divine source. And if you do that and you practice that, you are practicing brahmacharya. Another way I like to do this is to take apart the word. So brahmacharya is made up of two words, Brahman and Charya. So Brahma is a reference to the creator of all things. It's the ultimate power in the universe, the power of creation. Charya quite literally means how to use that power. So when we fuse these together, it quite literally means disciplined use of your sexual energy. Now, to begin with some practices for brahmacharya, I think it's important to first think about what would be like the precursor to needing to practice brahmacharya more. And so the first thing I would look for is if your mind is distracted, kind of like going here and there about sexuality. So if you're distracted frequently, then that's a good reason to say, okay, I should begin to bring my intent, my sankalpa, on brahmacharya. So first and foremost, going back to the beginning of brahmacharya, sometimes it's interpreted to mean abstinence or celibacy or continence. Know that abstinence isn't the route to take here. Abstinence and that kind of repression leads to something controlling you. It leads to becoming this big obstacle for you. So instead, just develop this inward focus, or inward, kind of like this attitude of focus and control. So holding your focus on the right things and controlling your behavior. Then you can kind of evaluate the potency of your own sexual energy. So if you understand how potent your sexual energy is from a biological standpoint, I believe that we become a little bit more respectful of it. So if you could think of the complexity of all the different types of cells in your body and what they do, and what they can perform, and the functions that they have, if you think about the cells that produce life, that is so unbelievably powerful. So if we can develop this attitude to focus on that and how potent these things are, then we can elevate our respect for them and therefore control. If we turn this outward to our relationships with others, when you do have sexual relations with others, it's important to have a really good understanding of the other person's needs and the ability to communicate your own. And ultimately have this open and honest dialogue and understanding that you have with this other person that you do trust to have those sexual relations with. Furthermore, if you are able to observe how you use your sexuality on a day-to-day basis, that would be another step that you can take to practice brahmacharya. And so what I mean there is sometimes people use their sexuality as a means of manipulating others or controlling them. Ultimately, they're using their sexuality as a weapon. And oftentimes we're using it by distracting other people or to overpower them. The practice of brahmacharya leads to control and freedom from those distractions, this constant craving. And with that control comes more energy and vigor.